everything. So what's going on YouTube? It's fineokay. I'm back from LAN, and I decided that I'm gonna make a solo lane tier list. So that's what we're doing on stream today. It's gonna be live, and I'm gonna try and make it more interactive and stuff. So I'm gonna be answering questions from chat as I go along with the tier list, maybe getting some advice from chat and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it is gonna be my opinion on what's good in the solo lane right now. This is during the off season. This is after the 5.15 or 5.14 patch. So it is the off season, so I don't know too much since, you know, I've only been scrimming a little bit here and there. But we just played a LAN. It wasn't that serious of a LAN. It was just an all-star LAN, but I still learned a lot from that. So we can also go off of that. So that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna go ahead and make the tier list. We're gonna go in here to Smite. We're gonna use the Smite Guru tier list to create it. We're obviously not gonna put every god in this tier list since it's just solo lane. And there's a lot of guys that just aren't viable, so we're only going to be really talking about the things that are at least viable or have been played in solo in the past, or you know, you could see there potentially, but we're going to pretty much ignore the other guys. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. So starting off with Achilles, I'm going to throw Achilles in probably A, maybe A+. The problem with pressure warriors right now is that you can't get too far ahead, and usually the low pressure gods can get to late game and potentially carry. There is the build going around where you can go like all the shields, and that allows you to have a really good mid game and kind of do what warriors used to do, which was just 1v3 in the mid game and just easily kill people. However, I still don't think Achilles is that great unless you completely deicide them in the mid game with your huge power spikes that you have as a warrior. It's just not going to be worth it, in my opinion. We're going to skip these gods. Alpwash actually recently got buffed. He's been banned, though, a lot because of his... he had a bug where his ult did damage to like phoenixes and towers. So that was pretty fun. But now that he's actually allowed again, because they fixed the bug, even though it wasn't fixed at LAN, I'm going to put him in S-. He got a bunch of buffs. He was already pretty decent solo. He was just a good counter pick, usually. But you could pick him at any point and still do well. He was one of the better solo mages. But now that he's buffed, I think he's going to be pretty much OP in every role. So I'm either having him in S- or maybe even S, but he's definitely going to be a good pick in solo in my opinion. So will it actually stay there? Yeah, all right, S-. Get these guys. We'll go to Amma. I'm going to put Amma on A+. She can get bullied out by somebody like Achilles or any or high pressure warrior. However, if you know how to play her, then you can get through that and be fine. I do still think she's one of the best late game warriors by far. Her ult is on a super low cooldown. It's very, very hard to kill her. She does a lot of damage. She has a really good utility with her passive and her auras. So I'll have her in A+. A good Amma player, maybe even put her in S-, but I only have her in A+ because this is considering that everyone, and not everyone is really good at Amma, can get past the kind of bad laning phase that she has. Do you think you can make a video about counterpicking? Possibly. It'd be a very long video and it'd be hard to do just on stream. I'm going to throw Ao Kuang in here as well. I'm going to throw Ao Kuang in. I actually think he's pretty decent in solo. His execute just becomes really impactful when you're full tank and you have full CDR. You're going to be able to get executes off a whole lot. Executing tanks. He still does a lot of damage even when you're building tank on him. And you're building tank on pretty much every character you play in solo. So that's why I'm throwing Ao Kuang in here. But yeah, so the full CDR is just really nice. I mean, it allows him to have his 2 and 3 up like constantly. And he just has super low cooldowns. And you know, that damage and execution factor coming from solo lane is pretty nice. Also throw Afro in A, maybe even, we'll probably put her in A+, actually. I think she's right on board with Amma. She does get super bullied by Alpwash, so if anybody ever picks Afro in your ranked games, just go ahead and pick Alpwash into her and you'll own her. What's up, Sneka? But she still is the late game monster. She still heals for a ton. If you can get to that point in the game, she's one of the best solos by far because of her healing. However, her early to mid game is very, very bad, and you can punish it very easily in ranked, especially when their jungler isn't helping her a whole ton. And their jungler really can't, especially early game, because it's just a lost lane most of the time. Throw Arachne down in A. Oh, throw her in B. I do think she's at least viable in solo. She's just a really bad character in my opinion. Too much single target, no CC apart from the stun on R2, which only stuns one person. You have to hit those 3 autos on them. So she doesn't really bring a whole lot, especially when you look at the other solos that you can play. She does do a lot of damage, and she still can 1v1 really well, but at the end of the day, it's very, very easy to play against her in lane because you can just sit in the minion wave and the spiders will never hit you, and that's most of her damage and slow. Ares I actually think is a little bit better than Arachne. My mic is in the way of the actual tier list. Actually, we'll throw Arachne down in C, and then we'll put Ares in either B or A minus. I'll put him in A minus, but he's probably hovering between B and A minus. Problem with Ares is just his clear is pretty rough. He's very easy to kill for one, and a lot of characters can just interrupt his channeled abilities, his chains, or his flames. So since so many characters in solo have CC, it's just going to be very common for him to get that stuff interrupted. But he does do a lot of damage, and he has really good abilities as far as like his ult. It's going to burn beads a lot of the time, and you can build full CDR in solo on him, so that means you're going to be ulting a whole lot, whereas in support, you're going to have to build auras and stuff, so you can't be building that full CDR, so it's just something else that you can bring to the table. Ardio, we'll put in A+. She's not nearly as good at late game fights as these two characters, as Amma and Afro. However, her early to mid game definitely makes up for it. She outpressures a lot of people. She's very safe as far as having so much sustain in lane. It's very hard for her to die. However, she does have a lot of counter matchups, and she doesn't have any CC immunity in her kit, so she can get picked very easily, and you can interrupt her dash and things like that. So if she had any CC immunity in her kit, Aryu would actually be a lot better. She'd probably be S or S+, just with CC immunity, honestly. So is Ares solo considered troll? I don't think it's considered troll, but it's just so rare that like when somebody does pick it, you're probably like, okay, it's gonna be bad. But if they're really good at Ares, they can make it work. So we're calling SS. Don't worry, we'll talk about that. What's up, Marty McFly? How are you? So yeah, we'll have Ardio in A+. Oh shoot, I messed up. I guess that's not gonna be it. Athena, I think Athena in general is just a really good pick. I'm gonna put her in S-. She just brings so much to the table in solo. If you go TP, you can ult over to fights constantly. You can always be in fights. The problem is if you do get Athena, most supports just want to play her because she's still really good in support as well, because you can play really aggressive in solo and then get ults over from there. She can be in dual lane, pushing the way with her ADC, and then all of a sudden be at a speed fight or at a blue fight or at a mid camp fight or anything like that. So she's still really good in support, but I do think she's probably one of the better guardians in solo, so I'll put her in S-. Baron, okay, so Baron's a little bit weird. I think in general he's probably like S. I don't really enjoy him too much. I think that you can punish his early game because the early game is not that great. He has very bad clear. However, I think if you play around it correctly, and especially in like ranked and stuff like that where you don't get punished for it, then Baron is either S or maybe even S+, honestly. He's probably up here, but I'm going to leave it an S for now. I think he is a little overrated in solo lane, or just in general, because that's usually where you want to play him. What's up, Alpha? Bacchus, I guess we'll throw down in like...
Back,
we'll throw him down in B. Yo, Dewey, thanks for the 7 months, man. Much appreciated. Welcome back, Yeet. I agree there. Bacchus will put in B. Actually better than Arachne, in my opinion. It just has more CC. Brings a little bit more damage in AoE, so I'd have him a little bit above her, but he also has the problem of having really bad clear and just kind of a rough early game. So, yeah, we'll put him there. Baka, I'll throw down an A. I think Baka is pretty good. I think you can play him solo in ranked and really hard carry. If it was just ranked that I was considering for this, because this is competitive and ranked, I'm considering both, then I'd have him down a little bit lower. But I do think if this was just ranked, he'd be like S- or S, because he can very easily carry a game from solo lane. Especially if you build a bit hybrid and a little bit more damage and a little carry, then you can easily do that. So Bellona we'll put in A+. I think Bellona's still a pretty good character. She has her strengths. She has really good clear. She's really good against ADCs. She's very hard to kill. She's very hard to gank. There's just a lot of things that are good with her, and she's still really, really good at 1v1ing. So she's still a strong character in my opinion. It's just a lot of times in this meta and with all the characters that are being played, there's just things that they do. They just do a little bit more, whether it's healing, whether it's a little bit extra CC, whether it's just, you know, some utility that they bring. You know, that's kind of what's just going on right now, and that's why a lot of these like Bellonas and RDOs and stuff like that just aren't being picked as much, because they just don't have nearly as much utility as these other characters. Cabrakan, I'll throw down in A- or A. I'll put him in A. I don't think Cabrakan's all that bad. He uses a lot of mana, so that's one problem he has. He uses a ton of mana, especially with his Tremors, and blue buff is just so bad right now that it makes Cabrakan pretty bad. But his build, once you get to that mid to late game, Cabrakan's still one of the better like bruisers in the game for sure, because he one-shots carries. He's still very, very hard to kill. Still brings a ton of CC with his 2 stuns and his lockdown from his ult and his Tremors. So I still think he's really, really good mid to late game. Probably one of the better mid to late games if you can get there. But the problem is, can you get there, especially with your terrible mana usage and stuff like that. So I guess we'll throw in Camazotz. I think Cam is probably A or A plus. He dropped off a lot because, like I said, the meta kind of shifted from like more damage characters and just 1v1ing and diving their backline to a bunch of utility and things that you bring outside of just damage, whether it's CC or healing or stuff like that. So Kama kind of dropped off because he doesn't really have any CC besides the slow, and you know, all he does is damage. All 4 of his abilities are damage, and they don't bring any CC. So if the meta shifts back towards diving the backline and only damage characters, and the items shift towards that and everything like that, then Kama's going to be up there again because he still has the best 1v1 in solo. Crazy sustain, no way to kill him. Ungankable because he has his all, you know, stuff like that. So Cerberus, I will throw an A+. Cerberus just an overall decent, like, good god. You can't really go wrong picking him because his laning phase is really simple. He's a guardian that does a lot of damage and still has a crazy amount of CC, whether it's the slow, the stun, or the basically like better Ares ult with the knockup. So you can't really go wrong with picking him. The problem is his late game is pretty bad. And for the same reason that you can't go wrong with picking him, he doesn't bring he's not all that great in any regard, kind of like a Wukong, as far as like he does everything but isn't really good at everything that he does. So I'll just throw Cerberus an A+. And also at the end of the day, you can't interrupt his 2. You can out pressure him pretty easily. You know, there's just things that he doesn't have going for him. And also his ult is, if you have knockup immunity, you don't get pulled by it. So just pick a character that can't get pulled by him. Chalk, we'll throw in an A-. Chalk's just one of those characters that isn't even really good at anything besides not dying in lane and not getting bullied. I still think if you can get ahead on Chalk, that he's actually a pretty decent character. The problem is you can't really get ahead, especially if you're playing against people that are good. And his late game is really trash. The only reason I would ever pick him, and the only reason I did pick him in the SPL last season, is I was trying to play a god that just had a long CC immunity that couldn't really die. But that's the only time I'd really ever pick him. So Chang'e, we're gonna throw an S+. I think even though Chang'e just got nerfed, I still think she's probably one of the better gods in the game. And even though she got nerfed, she kind of got buffed in the solo lane because Mage's Blessing is now one of the go-to items. And it's really good on Chang'e because she uses a lot of mana, so she makes use of the passive. The extra damage she gets like 3 1s off, 3 swipes off every wave, so that's an extra 75 damage right there. So that's a lot of damage to add on. And, you know, Warrior's Blessing isn't as good now, so people who are going these other starter items, or maybe even no defense, are going to take a lot of damage from the extra damage she's getting from it. So I actually think she kind of was getting buffed a little bit there. Yeah, it is Jolta. Next up, I'm going to throw Cronus in here because I think he is a little bit viable in solo. I'll put him at A-, but you know what? Yeah, we'll keep him A-, but he could be in between A and A-, honestly. I think he's actually pretty decent in solo. Very hard to kill, tons of sustain, does a lot of damage if you build like a bruiser build. You could even go full damage, you just have to have another frontline somewhere else. But he's definitely a viable and decent solo mage, so I'll put him in A-. Colon, we'll probably throw an S. I think Colon's still one of the better solo laners in general, but obviously probably the best warrior in the solo lane right now. So we'll have Colon in S. He's just still so good. He has 8 damaging abilities, good amount of CC with his ult in his regular form, and then the root and the dash in his transformation. He still out pressures. He still brings a ton of turn potential. The builds right now are good for him. The fact that you go like these shield builds, he gets a crazy amount of power in his transformation form, and his autos hit for so much. He has crazy outplay potential with the jump on his 3. Good clear, good early game. Everything's just good about him. His late game's still really good. Actives are really good with him. Blink ults are really sick. So he has crazy initiation. He just has everything going for him. Nothing really bad about him. So it's never ever bad to just pick Colon. You could literally first pick him in competitive and it would be good. So he does have a few matchups that are a little bit rough, but if you know how to play him, if you're a good Colon, then you should be fine. You should get to the point where you're Colon and you're going to be doing a little bit more than anybody else. So Colon will be S, and will probably be S for as long as he's a viable character. I feel like if he ever isn't, so let me explain this a little bit. If he is ever not viable, wait, how do I explain this? A Cocoon will never be like A. There's no way Cocoon will ever be A. He will either be one of the best gods in the game or complete trash, because I just think it's way too hard to balance his kit. I mean, he's a god that has 8 damaging abilities, for one. His transformation is one of the most insane mechanics in the entire game. He doesn't have mana. Like, he doesn't have to worry about mana at all. If they change any of these things, then maybe it will help him and make him more balanced, but I really feel like he's either going to be an S kind of character or just a complete trash character. So shifters as well. Yeah, shifters is a viable option. So blue buff nerf help Ku move up on the list? Yeah, it does, definitely affliction. I mean, they nerfed blue buff by a whole lot, and that just buffs Kukulkan because he doesn't have to ever worry about his blue, right? So obviously it does help him a whole lot. So Erlang, we're gonna throw down in, I think A-, maybe an A. I'll put him in A. One of the worst warriors in general, definitely one of the worst auto attack warriors. He's just so easy to kill, has so many counter matchups, anti-heal, owns him. He's still really good at 1v1ing, and a good Erlang with blink initiation taunts or just you know, thorns and stuff like that. It's still really, really good, but the problem is no CC immunity, so he just gets owned by so many different things. No slow immunity. I think they should one really good buff to him, and I don't know how this will affect him so much, but give him slow immunity on his turtle. So like when you turtle away, you're not just moving as fast as a turtle. So you can actually get away. So I think that would help him a whole lot. Fafnir will throw an A-. I actually think Fafnir is pretty decent in solo. Problem is his early clear is rough. He doesn't really trade too well unless you ult. Once you ult, you can easily out-trade people. So, but you know, his early game is just a little bit rough. His late game coming from solo, I think, is really good, especially with the items that you can build, like Gem of ISO and stuff, and the procs on your 2. What's up, Melon? I saw the solo troll do Uber solo, and it seemed to work. Thoughts on that? Yeah, I think it's pretty good, or Dong. I think you can build Bruiser on Uller and still do a lot of damage. He has really good stats as well. Uller base stats are basically like a warrior, so. It is one of the new starts, Jolta. Mage's Blessing is good in solo. Fenrir is up next. Throw Fenrir an A-. Just a lot of counter matchups. If you play it right and not get ulted by Fenrir ult and pulled under tower, then he won't get too far ahead in the early game. His mid to late game is meh coming from solo, honestly. You'd just rather have something that brings more utility. So we'll throw Fenrir in A-. Geb will throw down an A- for basically the same reason. His early game is pretty rough. If you do get to late game, it's similar to like Fafnir. If you do get to late game on Geb, he's really good coming from solo because he does a lot of damage, full CDR, shields up constantly, doing, you know, a ton of stuff with your utility and everything like that. The problem is you just have to get there, and it's a little bit rough. Guan Yu's kind of in the same boat, in my opinion. Maybe even throw Guan in A. I don't really like playing Guan, but he's also, like I said, kind of in the same boat as Fafnir and Geb. His early game's a little bit rough, and his late game isn't amazing. The heal is what's really important. But he's the same as he always was before. The fact that you know, it's easy to get away from his ult if you like jump over a wall. A lot of his abilities you can interrupt or just avoid. So if you're gonna pick him, you're usually picking him for the late game heal. I guess I'll throw Ganesh in here. He's probably in B though. Just, you know, really bad early game clear. Hard to trade until you get your ult and you get some levels into your ult and stuff like that. But if you ever do want to play Ganesh with like a Kali jungler or something that you want to get fed, and just let them camp your lane, and then they'll always get their target kill, and they'll always get the kill, and they'll always get fed off of that. So you also, like, say your jungler has like a CC, they can CC them, then you can throw your ult on top of them and then knock them up on the ult, and then it's almost always a guaranteed kill. So it's just solo techie lane. So who's up next? Hades. I'll throw him in A-. I think Hades is okay, but he just doesn't bring a whole lot. I think he's probably one of the worst characters in general. Like if they were gonna rework anyone or kind of just rework a couple of abilities on anyone, it would be Hades. I don't think he has been really a good character in a very long time. So Hebo will throw down in, I think, an A- as well. I think you can build Bruiser on him and still do a lot of damage, have a lot of utility as far as your 2 on like a super low cooldown and having that slow immunity for your team. Your 1v1 is really good. Your turn potential on ganks is really good because you're knock up and, you know, your safety with your ult and stuff like that. So Hell, I'll throw in A. I think Hell's actually decently viable in solo. You definitely have to know how to play her correctly and not die at all in the early game. If you die in the early game, it's going to be rough. But if you even get to the mid game only a little bit behind, or maybe even like a decent amount behind, you're still going to be Hell. You're still going to be doing crazy amounts of heals, crazy utility with your cleanse and slows and stuff like that. So I do think Hell will be A. I'm going to put Herc in S-. I think Herc is one of the better warriors for sure. He can fight anyone. He easily can fight anyone because of his passive and his CC and the possibility of pulling people in the tower and stuff like that. Still a crazy monster mid game. You're not killing a Hercules in the mid game unless you really 5-man commit on him. Especially if you don't have anti-heal. If you have like 3 people with anti-heal, then you can commit on him pretty easily. However, a lot of times you just don't have it at that point in the game. And still one of the best CC combos in the entire game, especially for a warrior. You can put people way out of position and get free kills with him. So I'll put Herc in S-. And also, if Herc didn't have a good matchup with Kukulkan, I'd probably put him in A+. But since Herc has such a good matchup with Kukulkan, one of the best or the best warrior in solo, then I would then I have him in S- just because he has that good matchup. Moving on, Gepri, I don't really think is viable in solo, so I'm not going to put him. Kumba, we'll throw down in A-. I think Kumba is okay. If you like playing Kumba, you could probably play him in solo and get away with it with the full CDR builds and stuff like that. However, he just doesn't bring a whole lot, in my opinion. Yeah, he has the utility. So he does have the utility in his build. His kit. So his kit does bring a lot, but it's just the fact that it just doesn't really make sense to have him as a solo laner, because as a solo laner, you want to constantly be diving somebody and, you know, have them for damage and stuff like that. But if you Kumba ult their backline and your jungler is diving them with you, that's a lot of downtime where you're not going to be hitting them. So that's one of his problems, in my opinion. Kuzenbo, we'll put an A+. I think Kuzenbo is actually pretty decent in solo. Still really, really good at diving the backline. Super hard to kill, long duration CC as ult. The reflect is still nice, especially with thorns. And he can easily, with just the base damage in his kit and pushing people either through a wave or just pushing them in a wall and stuff like that, he can easily solo carries with his base damage. So Loki, okay, this is where things get interesting, boys and girls. I'm gonna put Loki in A. Actually, I think Loki's getting a little bit more viable, honestly. I've been playing against him lately, and it's seeming to be like more and more difficult to actually punish him in the early game. And if you could play Loki and get to late game, like every game, especially in ranked, mainly in ranked, honestly, then it's going to be really, really good, because even though you don't have a front line, you bring so much more. You bring almost always a one-shot potential to at least kill someone, so you're at least trading 1-for-1, or split pushing, or just splitting up the map, or, you know, you're actually really hard to kill as Loki, especially when you have your full CDR. Your invis up so often that it's going to be really hard for them to actually kill you. So you're not easy. It's not like you're playing, for example, let me just pick a random god. It's not like you're playing Hui solo building full damage. It's completely different, because after your jump is down as Hui, you're just dead. I mean, you're just dead. So if you played him in solo, you'd just be dying nonstop. Even though it's similar that you're building full damage, Loki is just so hard to kill, especially from ahead, and when he has full CDR, that it you just bring other things, honestly. Even though you're not a frontline, you're bringing more split push, more honestly just annoyingness to the enemy team, their comms and everything like that, as far as like defending. And you can 1v1 pretty much anyone as Loki. So if you do split push and they send one over, you probably should just 1v1 them. And if you kill that, that's honestly one of the most annoying things as Loki, and especially against Loki, is that he'll 1v1 whoever is there defending the split push, and he'll probably win it unless he's like taking tower aggro or something like that. So that's honestly something that he brings to the table. It's really nice. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna put Loki in A. I know that's kind of crazy, Loki in the same tier as all these other characters, but I honestly think that. So we're skipping some characters. Oops. I'm gonna go ahead and put Odin anyway. I'm gonna put Odin in A+. I think he still has a lot of good matchups, still decent in solo, really hard to punish. There's so many characters in the game that he counters, especially healers, and healers are still kind of in the meta right now, so keep him in A+ for now. Nike, I'm gonna throw Nike down in A-. I think Nike's just kind of bad. Doesn't bring a whole lot. No CC apart from the knockup and a slow. Knockup's very hard to hit, or be consistent with at least. And then, you know, the slow is whatever. Heavenly counters it, and slow immunities to counter it. Still very, very hard to kill. So if you are picking if you want to pick a character in solo, it's just really hard to kill. Like say they look like they're going a complete frontline commit, then maybe you just go Nike. But other than that, I don't think she's very good. So I'll put Nike A-. Who are we up next? Nemesis, we'll throw in A- as well. I think Nemesis is at least decent, or at least viable in solo. If you like playing Nem, then you can play her. Problem is, she's a super diving character. She just wants to dive backline. That's just not the meta. If the meta goes towards more of a diving in the backline meta, then I do think Nem will probably move up to like A+. because I do think she's viable in solo. If you build her bruiser, it's really nice, and she's so hard to deal with. Nox will throw in B. I think Nox is at least viable in solo as well. She does bring a lot of that utility. She can commit on the front line really well with her team. The problem is you don't really do that all that much as a solo laner. Even though it's not a diving the backline meta, you're still, you're still in the middle of the fight, and as Nox, you're kind of just sitting in front of everyone, hitting their front line, and you don't really want that from Nox. So Osiris, I actually think Osiris is probably A+. I think he's gotten a lot better with the buffs he's had. Still one of the better pressure warriors for sure. So I got rid of Nem, did I? Oh, oops. Whatever, A-. Okay, thank you, Melon. So Osiris I'll have an A+. I do think he's one of the better pressure warriors for sure. Still bullies really hard. Still has a monster mid game. Thorns build still does a ton of damage. The Thorns and shield build really help him a lot, I think, and it allows him to kind of carry the mid game if he's ahead, and he can get ahead with his kit and stuff like that. So who's up next? Rat, I'm actually gonna put an A, maybe even A+. I do think Rat's actually a pretty good pick right now. Like I said before with the Osiris and the pressure warriors, he has a really good mid game. His rotation potential is really nice with his global ultimate. His proxy potential is even better because he has the global ultimate. He can just go up in the air after he proxies, and that just opens up so much of the map. Also, something you can do with him is you can rush your Acorn out in solo. Since you don't really go Warrior's Blessing, you don't really need to go starter item. You can just go your tier 2 Acorn or Chalice and just buy your Acorn in lane, and then you have 50 power 2 minutes into or 3 minutes into the game, and have crazy trade potential with enemy solo since you have so much more power than them, and it allows you to kind of like bully in the early game. So his early game is actually pretty good. I guess I did skip Nejat. Nejat, honestly, S or S+. I'd put him in S. He's just really, really sick right now with his buffs. He is getting nerfs, so maybe he'll go down a little bit. With his nerfs, though, considering his nerfs, I'll actually put him in A+. If it was 20 power before and they kept him like that, then I'd probably have him in S. But since they're nerfing that, I'm gonna bring him down to A+, because 10 power is still really, really nice. But I'm just gonna keep him in A+ for now, because we'll have to test that out a little bit. I actually haven't played Robin at all, literally at all, even in solo. So I don't really know too much about him. But if I had to guess, I'd probably just throw him in A-. With his assassin stats and stuff now, just probably not worth playing him in solo. Plus, if you're going to get Robin on your team, you should just play him in jungle. He's actually OP in jungle now. So who's up next? We'll go Sobek. I think Sobek's probably around A now. Considering this is ranked and SPL, I'll put him in A+. If it was just ranked, I'd probably have him down in A- or A, since, in ranked you want to play characters that can like bully early game and stuff like that. But since it's both, I'm going to put Sobek in A+, because he's still probably the best Guardian coming out of solo in the mid to late game. He just has crazy CC potential and basically displacement potential, because he's similar to Herc in that his pluck is one of the best abilities at just getting somebody out of position and instantly killing them. And he's really, really good at that, especially when he has a full CDR and his pluck is on like a 6 or 7 second cooldown, whatever it is. It's a very short cooldown. I don't know if it's exactly that, but yeah, we'll have Sobek in that. Wukong, I'm also going to throw in A+. I think Wukong's actually a pretty good pick right now, especially with Warrior's Blessing. He's a pretty safe pick as well, unless they have an Athena, Serket, and Chang'e, and they're killing you at your tower line. But yeah, I do think he's a pretty good pick right now, especially with like Gladiator Shield, and the shield build does a lot of damage, has a lot of potential in mid-game team fights, and his late game isn't even bad. You can just go Thorns on him or whatever active and dive super hard and survive. So even though it's not a dive in the backline meta, you can still dive the backline as long as you don't die immediately, because the problem right now is if you dive their backline and you get kind of out of position or separated from your team, then they'll just turn on you and insta kill you. But Wukong's really good at doing that, since he can just ult up in the air and then he can stall for a long time until his team gets there. So every other one of these characters kind of can just die to the builds that ADCs and mages have right now. Up next, we'll throw Susano in here. We'll put Susano in A-. I think he's decent in solo. Still decent CC with his pull and his ult, and they're very, very hard to miss. And if it goes shift towards like a diving the backline meta, it might be a little bit better. The only problem I feel with Susano in solo is if you build Bruiser on him, you actually don't do a crazy amount of damage. It's going to be, especially late game, once you get to late game, it's going to be very hard to actually get your damage off consistently and for it to do a lot. Thanatos will have an A. People are playing Thanatos with the tier 2 boot start and rushing boots. That's definitely a good and viable strat in rank, so I'm going to have Thanatos in A. He gets a lot better on land, though, because it's much easier to hit his 1, and that's actually a really big deal. So if this was land tier list, I'd probably have him in A+, but since it's just overall, I'm going to put Thanatos in A. One of the reasons you can do this start on him and be super aggressive is that you have a ranged sustain and ranged clear, so it's really nice on him because you can kind of just play back if you need to and just sustain up once you get poked, and then you can play aggressive again once you're full health. So who's up next? Terra. Put Terra in A-. I think Terra's at least viable in solo, maybe a little bit low, but I think she's still better than oopsies. I think she's still better than these characters down here, but I do think she's probably on par with all these other characters. Just play her in support, honestly. She's more of a support character anyway at this point. She does do a lot of damage, but her early game's a little bit bad. So you just want to get to that mid to late game if you are going to play Terra, and you'll be useful. You do still have a lot of utility and sustain on her. So Neja A+. Yeah, I put Neja A+ with his new passive. You don't think bats can work? Oh yeah, I do think bats can work. I just skipped over him on accident. If you're going to play bats, I'd probably put an A- though. You just want to build damage on him most of the time, in my opinion. I guess he actually gets a little bit more viable with his new passive, though, considering, you know, if you're going to play him bats, you want to at least be able to build like crit on him, so you want to play him in jungle. But maybe he's a little bit more viable in solo now with his new passive, so I'll actually put him in A. I just haven't tested him too much. He does have the crazy ult team fight potential. I mean, his ult's still one of the best ults in the game for team fighting. It can just CC the entire team and separate everyone, or just isolate one person. So if you have full CDR coming out of solo lane, say you build like breastplate and stuff like that on him, then that's gonna be really useful because your ult's gonna be up pretty often. So I throw Humbats in A, I guess. So moving on, Morgan. I'm gonna throw Morgan in. I guess she's not on par with those characters, so maybe we throw an A-. But I think she's probably A-, in between A- and A. If you're good at Morgan, I think she's actually pretty decent in solo now. They buffed her for a couple of things. She now gets stacks. Before, she didn't get the stacks of the person she transformed into. Now she does. And so, like, say you turn into a character with Urchin and they are fully stacked. Now you actually get that fully stacked Urchin. Or like a character who has Dev Gloves. Like, you turn into a Hunter. You weren't getting those stacks before, and that was a big deal. Now you actually do. And also her clear is a lot better. They buffed the damage on her clear, so she's pretty viable in solo, I think. And she's actually really nice to play in solo because you can build tanky on her, which means you can be like a frontline initiator with your invis into stun. And this also means that you can build like CDR on her and have your ult up more often. So moving on, Thor is up next. I'm gonna throw Thor in A+. I think Thor is still rolling out. Really good pick in solo, one of the better assassins for sure. It doesn't have the sustain, but brings the proxy potential and rotation potential with his ult. Full CDR on him is really, really nice. Building Bruiser on him is really, really nice. You do a lot of damage. Your wall on a low cooldown is really, like, actually, if you're really good with the wall, it's one of the best abilities in the game, in my opinion, at least into the right characters. I mean, obviously, if they all have jumps, then it's not going to be as good, but if you can wall off a certain team comp as Thor, it's insane. One of the best abilities, in my opinion. Tier's up next. I'm going to put Tier in A. Tier just doesn't bring a whole lot, gets countered by matters and stuff like that, but still one of the better picks because he's very, very hard to punish, has a lot of sustain, can still die really well, and is very hard to kill in a team fight with the low CDR that he has. He does have a lot of counter picks though, like including like Ardio. Uller, since Solar Troll plays it, I'll put it in A-. Just, I'd rather have a front line, and if you're gonna build Bruiser on him, then I think it's a little bit better, but honestly, the only CC he has is his one stun. So, you know, it just doesn't bring it nearly as much as all these other characters. So if he does do well in a game, it's usually because there's a frontliner somewhere else, probably in the jungle. So, yeah, Vamana, honestly, terrible character. Throw him in C. And I'm not joking. Okay, I'm joking a little bit. I'll probably have Vamana in between B and A-. Only CC he has is a slow and a knockup. He does have 4 damaging abilities, so that's really nice. He just doesn't bring nearly as much as any of these other characters. He gets super countered by anti-heal. His mana costs are crazy in lane, especially with the nerf blue buff. Even though they buffed his mana costs, they're still really bad. You have to use 2 abilities to clear the wave most of the time, especially with that like bluestone and stuff like that, like we used to have. Yeah, and it's really hard to 1v1 anyone, honestly. Late game, it's not even worth playing for his late game because his late game is pretty bad as well. So Up next is Jingtin. I'll throw Jingtin an A-. Jingtin is just one of the worst. Actually, I think Jingtin's a little bit better than Kumba and Ares and these other characters, so I'll put him in A. I think that's more fair. He's still one of the worst Guardians playing in solo, as far as like if you wanted to play them, you might as well play like Athena or Ardeo or Cerberus or stuff, or Kuzumba or anything like that. But he still brings the ult in the mid game. And if you have like a really sick combo with his knockup, if you can easily confirm his knockup with like a raw snipe, then that's an instantly at the beginning of the fight, then you're going to be well off in that fight from the get-go. So that's nice. It's just his ult, Jingtin's ult, it's one of the worst good abilities in the game. It's good because once you actually connect it with somebody, you force their beads or you throw them into your team, and it's like that's like really sick. However, I say it's the worst because it's very hard to actually connect with them because you're just so slow. They can literally just walk out of it. They can jump away from it. It's the wind up is just incredibly hard to actually connect with them. So I would say it's probably the worst good ability in the game, if that makes sense to you guys. Ymir A-. One of the only Guardians that actually pressures really hard. The problem is he is so easy to kill. He's just so bad in the late game. Just honestly, like, you have to win the game by the 20-minute mark, I think, as Ymir solo, pretty much by the 20-minute mark. Because if you get past that, no matter what you do, and I'm not trolling, pretty much no matter what you do, you're just going to be the easiest target in the game, even with full tank. So, Zhang Kui will throw in S. The reason I have Zhang Kui in S, not S+, is he got those nerfs, and they did a little bit to him. He's still really, really good, I think. I still think he's one of the best solos in the game, especially one of the best mages. However, I do think he's on par with like Baron and Colin. Also, I think you can punish him a little bit since Warrior's Blessing isn't bought as often now. If you go like Mage's Blessing on him or some other thing, then he's going to be pretty easy to kill in the mid game or early game. However, he still does Zhang Kui things in the mid to late game. Still can easily 1v3 and carry and do everything that Zhang Kui does. And he's just super, super simple and easy to play. So you can't really go wrong with him. So I'll throw Zhang Kui in S. And he still has that super long stun. So anyway, I think that's it. That's pretty much all the characters that I would put in solo, that I would have viable in solo to begin with. Maybe I'd throw in Isis. I'd probably put her down in B or something. I think she's decent in solo, however, or at least decently viable. She's just, you know, she's Isis. So she's pretty easy to kill anyway. And yeah, that's pretty much, I think that's the only characters I actually have there. Maybe Kali I'd throw in there at the end of the day, throw Kali down here somewhere. But, you know, not really too viable, and she hasn't really been played there in the past unless you build full damage on her in your Cyclone Spin. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys agree with my, well, I don't hope you guys agree with it, but I hope you guys like the tier list and learned a thing or two from it. If you don't agree with it, let me know why. Maybe ask some questions or, you know, stuff like that. Like I said, kind of in the off season right now, so I don't know too much. And, you know, some of these things are just my personal preference and my opinion on things. And like I said, I'm accounting for ranked and competitive play, not just SPO. I just mean competitive play in general. It means Challenger Cup or even small tournaments or community tournaments, stuff like that. It's just stuff where you have communications and you're pick banning and you're talking to your team about your pick bans and stuff like that. So that's basically all that competitive means. At the end of the day, it just kind of means communication. So anyway, yeah, that's my solo lane tier list for 5.14, I do believe. Could be 5.15. I'll check after I'm finished with this video. So hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to be making another video, either how to proxy or something like that. We're going to get some advice or some suggestions from chat. Like I said, I did just get back from LAN, from the All-Star LAN. So time to grind some streams and play some Smite. So yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.